Lena Ramirez stood outside the tall glass building with a nervous smile on her face. The sun was shining brightly, but she felt cold inside. Her hands clutched a thin, worn-out folder, filled with the papers she had worked on for weeks. Her shoes were clean but old, and her simple dress looked a little faded from too many washes. Still, she had done her best to look presentable. She had tied her hair back neatly and worn a small silver pin her mother had given her years ago. Today was important. She was here to apply for a job she had dreamed about for a long time. She had never been inside such a place before. The building was huge and shiny, like something out of a movie. People in suits walked in and out with confidence. Lena had taken the bus for almost an hour and walked the last 15 minutes because she couldn't afford a cab. She had printed her resume at the local library and added her best designs, drawn by hand, into her portfolio. She knew she didn't have a fancy degree or expensive training, but she had talent. She believed that should be enough. So, with a deep breath, she pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped inside. The lobby was grand and filled with soft lighting, clean white tiles, and plants that looked like they were changed every week. A calming scent floated in the air like lavender and fresh paper. There was a front desk in the center with a woman seated behind it. She wore a sleek blouse, her makeup perfect, and her nails painted a shiny pink. She was typing on her computer, looking very busy. Lena walked up carefully and stood quietly until the woman looked up. The receptionist glanced at her quickly, then looked again, this time with raised eyebrows. Her eyes moved from Lena's shoes to her folder, and then back to Lena's face. "Can I help you?" the receptionist asked, her tone polite but clearly uninterested. "Hi," Lena said softly, trying to sound confident. "I'm here to apply for the junior designer position. I brought my portfolio with me." The receptionist, whose name tag said Amanda, blinked at her slowly as if confused. Then she let out a short laugh, not loud but enough to sting. "You walked in to apply? In person?" Amanda said, her lips curling slightly. Lena nodded, trying to stay calm. "Yes, I thought it might be better to show my work directly. I wasn't sure about the online process." Amanda leaned back in her chair, clearly amused. "Honey, people don't do that anymore. Everything's online now. We get hundreds of applications. You don't just walk in off the street with a folder." Lena's cheeks turned red, but she didn't step back. "I understand. I just wanted to try. I worked really hard on this." Amanda rolled her eyes and reached out, taking the folder, lazily with one hand. She opened it and flipped through a few pages without really looking. Her fingers moved quickly, and her eyes didn't stay on any design for more than a second. "I'll, give it to someone later," she said with a shrug. "You can sit over there if you want, but I can't promise anyone will see you today. No appointment, no guarantee." Lena nodded again and walked slowly toward the waiting area. She sat down on a sleek gray couch, trying not to feel discouraged. She watched Amanda return to her computer, then lean toward another woman behind the desk. The two whispered, looked at her, and laughed quietly. Lena looked down at her hands and held on to her hope. Maybe someone would give her a chance. Maybe someone would see her work and understand. Minutes passed, then more minutes, an hour. People came and went. Well-dressed employees walked by with coffee in their hands or chatted about meetings and deadlines. Lena sat patiently, her back straight, her eyes watching every movement near the elevator. No one called her name. She stood up once and walked back to the desk. Amanda looked up again with a sigh. "Excuse me," Lena said politely. "I've been waiting a while. I was just wondering, has anyone had a chance to see my portfolio?" Amanda glanced at her screen. "Everyone's busy," she said flatly. "Most people already left for lunch. You can wait if you want, but I don't think anything's going to happen today." Lena nodded again, trying not to show her disappointment. She returned to her seat. A small part of her told her to leave, that she was wasting her time, but another part of her refused. She had come too far. She had worked too hard. She would wait a little longer. Then something unexpected happened. The elevator doors slid open, and a tall man in a dark blue suit stepped out. His hair was a little gray at the sides, and he walked with quiet confidence. Several employees greeted him with polite nods. Amanda stood up quickly. "Mr. Clark, good afternoon," she said, her voice suddenly cheerful. The man nodded, distracted, but his eyes soon landed on Lena sitting quietly near the window. She looked out of place, tired but hopeful. He slowed down and glanced at Amanda. "Is she here for an interview?" he asked. Amanda chuckled. "No, sir. Just someone who walked in. No appointment. Said she wanted to apply for the junior designer. Earl, I told her we handle all that online." Mr. Clark looked at Lena again, then back at Amanda. "Did you see her work?" Amanda looked unsure. "I glanced. Nothing special." Mr. Clark didn't answer. Instead, he walked over to Lena and offered a kind smile. "Hello," he said gently. "I'm Richard Clark, CEO of this firm. May I ask your name?" Lena stood up quickly, surprised and nervous. "I'm Lena Ramirez, sir." He held out his hand. She shook it carefully. "I hear you brought your portfolio with you," he said. "May I take a look?" Lena blinked. Amanda was watching, her mouth slightly open. "Yes, of course," Lena said, handing him the folder. Mr. Clark opened it and began turning the pages. But unlike Amanda, he took his time. He looked at each drawing closely, his brow furrowing, with thought. After a few moments, he looked up at her again. "Did you make all these by hand?" he asked. "Yes," Lena replied softly. "I used pencils, pens. Sometimes I borrow an old tablet from a friend, but mostly it's by hand." Mr. Clark nodded slowly. "Interesting lines. Very creative approach. Where did you study?" "I didn't," Lena said honestly. "I couldn't afford college. I learned from books, online tutorials, and practice. Lots of practice." He gave a small smile. "That shows." Then he looked toward the elevator. "Come with me. I'd like our design team to see this." Lena's eyes widened. Amanda's jaw dropped. "Right now?" Lena asked, surprised. "Right now," Mr. Clark said kindly. "You've waited long enough." And just like that, Lena followed him toward the elevator, her heart racing. For the first time that day, she felt seen. Lena stepped into the elevator beside Mr. Clark, holding her folder tightly in both hands. Her heart was beating fast. Everything was happening so quickly, she wasn't even sure if it was real. Just a few minutes ago, she had been sitting quietly, unsure if anyone would even look at her portfolio. Now she was standing next to the CEO of one of the top marketing firms in the city. The elevator was quiet except for the soft hum as it moved upward. Mr. Clark didn't say much. He seemed focused, thinking. Lena glanced at him nervously, wondering what he was thinking. Was he impressed? Was he just being polite? She didn't know. When the elevator doors opened, they stepped into a bright and open office space. People were walking around with purpose, talking about projects, looking at computer screens, and holding design samples. The room was filled with large windows, whiteboards covered in sketches, and shelves full of books and art supplies. A woman in her 40s approached them. She wore glasses and a simple black outfit. She had short hair and held a stylus in one hand. She looked surprised to see the CEO walking in with a young woman she didn't recognize. "Rachel," Mr. Clark said, turning to her. "This is Lena Ramirez. She came in today hoping to apply for the junior designer position. I've seen her work, and I think you should take a look." Rachel gave Lena a curious but warm smile. "Nice to meet you, Lena. I'm the head of the design department here." Lena smiled nervously. "Nice to meet you, too." Mr. Clark handed the folder to Rachel. "I know we've already started shortlisting applicants, but I'd like you to review this with fresh eyes. No background checks, no degrees, just the work." Rachel nodded and walked over to a large table. She opened the folder and slowly began turning the pages. A few other team members gathered around, interested in what was going on. They weren't used to the CEO getting personally involved with job applicants. As Rachel looked through the designs, she didn't speak right away. She examined each sketch carefully, tilting her head from time to time. She traced a few lines with her finger and even asked one of her assistants to bring a magnifier to better see some of the small details. The silence in the room grew. Lena stood still, watching every movement, holding her breath. Finally, Rachel looked up. "Did you draw all of this by hand?" she asked. "Yes," Lena replied. "Mostly with pencils, pens, and markers. I don't have access to much technology at home, so I just use what I can." Rachel nodded slowly. "These compositions are very smart. The shading is thoughtful. And the branding samples. This one right here. Did you come up with the name and style yourself?" "I did," Lena said. "I created the logo and tagline. For a fictional eco-friendly clothing brand, I imagined what the brand would stand for and designed everything based on that idea." Rachel smiled a little. "That's more than most college graduates do in their first year." Some of the designers around the table murmured in agreement. One of them, a young man with messy hair and a friendly face, looked at Lena and gave her a thumbs up. Mr. Clark crossed his arms and looked around the room. "What do you think? Should we give her a chance to show what she can do?" Rachel nodded without hesitation. "Absolutely. If she can do this without formal training, I'd like to see what she can do with guidance." Mr. Clark turned to Lena. "Would you be open to doing a small test project right now, just to see how you work in a team environment?" Lena's eyes widened. She had not expected this, but she nodded immediately. "Yes, I'd love to try." Rachel handed her a tablet and stylus. "Let's see what you can come up with. We're working on a pitch for a new local bakery. They want something playful but modern. Bright colors but not childish. You have 1 hour to sketch a logo idea. Don't worry about being perfect. Just show us how you think." Lena sat down at an empty desk. She took a deep breath, put her folder aside, and focused on the blank screen in front of her. Around her, people returned to their workstations, but a few stayed nearby, watching curiously. Lena blocked everything else out. She thought about what a bakery meant: warmth, sweetness, family. Then she began to sketch. She started with the shape of a rolling pin, then turned it into a smiling face with whiskers made of flour. She added soft, rounded letters and imagined the colors as warm yellows and soft pinks. She didn't try to copy anything she had seen before. She followed her own ideas, her instincts. Time passed quickly. When Rachel came back to check, Lena was still adding details to her design. Rachel looked at the screen and smiled. "Very creative. The logo feels friendly and fresh. You've got great instincts." Lena looked up, unsure if she had done enough. Rachel called over a few more designers. They discussed the work, asked Lena questions about her choices, and were surprised by her answers. She explained everything clearly: why she picked certain shapes, what she thought the brand message was, and how customers might feel when they saw the logo. Mr. Clark returned just as the review was ending. Rachel turned to him and said, "She's got raw talent, and more than that, she listens, thinks, and works with heart." Mr. Clark nodded and looked at Lena. "I'd like to offer you a paid apprenticeship, Lena. It's not a junior designer role yet, but we'll guide you, train you, and if things go well, you'll grow into the position soon. Are you interested?" Lena couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her hands shook a little as she spoke. "Yes," she said softly. "Thank you. Thank you so much." The team clapped quietly, and Lena felt tears welling up in her eyes, but this time they were happy tears. Someone had finally given her a chance. Someone had believed in her work. As Mr. Clark shook her hand again, he added, "You've already surprised us. I think you're going to do great things." And just like that, Lena's life began to change. She had come to the building hoping just to be noticed. Instead, she left the design floor with her first real opportunity, and a room full of people who now saw her for what she truly was: a talented young woman with a bright future ahead. The next morning, Lena woke up earlier than usual. She barely slept the night before, but it wasn't because she was worried. It was because she was excited. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was finally stepping into the world she had dreamed of. She had an apprenticeship at a top design company, not because of a degree or a connection, but because someone had seen her work and believed in her. She kept thinking about Mr. Clark's words. "You've already surprised us. I think you're going to do great things." She wore the same dress she had worn the day before, but she added a small scarf her sister had given her. She packed a sandwich and a water bottle in her old bag and made sure her folder was neatly inside. Even though she didn't think she would need it today, it was a habit now. Her mother had always told her, "When you walk into a room, bring your hard work with you. It shows who you are before you even speak." When Lena arrived at the office, it felt different this time. The building still looked shiny and tall, but she didn't feel small anymore. She walked through the front doors with her head held high. The lobby was busy, filled with employees starting their day, grabbing coffee and heading to meetings. Amanda, the receptionist, was at her desk again. She was typing something and laughing with a coworker. When she looked up and saw Lena walking, and her smile faded slightly, she sat up straighter and raised her eyebrows. "You're back?" Amanda asked, her tone still surprised. Lena nodded politely. "Yes. I was asked to come in today by Mr. Clark and the design team." Amanda blinked. "Mr. Clark, seriously?" Before Lena could respond, a young assistant from the design department walked up quickly. She was holding a clipboard and wearing a bright yellow blazer. "There you are," she said, smiling warmly at Lena. "I'm Julia. I'll be showing. You around today? Rachel's waiting for you upstairs." Lena gave Amanda a small smile and followed Julia toward the elevators. Amanda didn't say anything. She just stared, her mouth slightly open, clearly shocked. As the elevator doors closed, Julia turned to Lena and said, "People have been talking about you since yesterday. It's not every day someone walks in from the street and impresses. Both the CEO and the design head. That's honestly amazing." Lena blushed a little and looked down. "I just wanted someone to give me a chance." "Well, you earned it," Julia said. When they reached the design floor, Lena was shown to a small but bright corner desk near a large window. On the desk was a brand new tablet, a sketch pad, some colorful pens, and a welcome note with her name on it. She touched the paper gently. It had been a long time since anyone had done something like that for her. Rachel came over a few minutes later, holding a cup of coffee in one hand and a tablet in the other. "Glad you're here," Rachel said. "Today you'll be working on some sample tasks. Just small things, nothing too heavy. We want to see how you think, how you approach problems, and how you handle feedback. Sound good?" Lena nodded eagerly. "Yes, absolutely." Rachel smiled. "Good. Just relax, be yourself, and ask questions when you need to." Lena spent the next few hours fully focused. She worked on simple tasks at first, editing color palettes, suggesting logo improvements, and drafting sample layouts. Her hands moved quickly and her mind stayed sharp. She didn't try to show off. She just worked the way she always had, carefully, creatively, and with love for what she was doing. During lunch, a few of the junior designers invited her to eat with them. At first, she hesitated. She wasn't used to sitting with people in offices, but they were friendly and curious. They asked her how she got the apprenticeship and where she learned to design. "I taught myself," Lena explained. "Mostly at the library and online. I couldn't afford design school, so I just studied on my own and practiced every day." One of the girls at the table, named Mia, looked impressed. "That's incredible. I spent 4 years at design school and still struggle with some of the stuff you seem to do naturally." Lena smiled shyly. "I still have a lot to learn." Mia nodded. "We all do. But you're off to a great start." Back at her desk, Lena continued working. She stayed quiet, but noticed everything. How people talked about projects, how they organized their ideas, and how they handled feedback. She watched Rachel lead her team with kindness and strength, always encouraging people to speak up but also guiding them when they were unsure. Later in the day, Rachel called Lena into her office for a quick chat. "You did well today," Rachel said. "You're a fast learner and I like how you explain your ideas. But I also noticed something else. You listen. That's rare." Lena sat quietly, unsure of what to say. "Listening makes a great designer," Rachel continued. "It helps you understand what clients want, what your team needs, and what your work is saying. You've got that gift." Thank you, Lena said softly. There's one more thing, Rachel added. We've been working on a campaign for a local charity. They want to reach more young people. I'd like to see what ideas you have for that tomorrow. It's a test, but also a chance to contribute. Don't be afraid to be bold. Lena nodded. I'll do my best. When the day ended, Lena packed her things and headed back downstairs. As she passed the reception desk, Amanda glanced up. This time she didn't say anything, but her eyes followed Lena, not with amusement or judgment, but with something else. Maybe curiosity, maybe regret. Outside, the sun was setting. The city looked golden and full of life. Lena stood for a moment on the steps, breathing in the warm air. She felt tired but happy. It had been a long day, but a good one. She pulled out her phone and called her younger brother. Hey, she said, smiling. Guess what? I think I'm finally part of something real. He cheered on the other end of the line. I knew it! You did it! Not yet, Lena said, but I'm getting there. As she walked toward the bus stop, she held her head high. The path wasn't easy, but she wasn't alone anymore. People were starting to see her, not just as a poor girl with a folder, but as an artist, a worker, a person with a future. And that was only the beginning. The next morning, Lena arrived at the office a little earlier than usual. The streets were still quiet, and the sun had just begun to peek through the tall buildings. She stood outside the front doors for a moment, looking up at the company name on the glass. It still felt like a dream that she had been given a place here. But now the dream was starting to feel real. When she entered the building, the receptionist Amanda looked up briefly from her desk. Her expression was more neutral, this time. No smile, no frown, just a quick glance before going back to her computer. Lena didn't mind. She had more important things to focus on. She took the elevator up to the design floor where Rachel and the team were already starting their day. As Lena stepped onto the floor, she saw people setting up presentations, talking about deadlines, and reviewing sketches. The energy in the room felt different, busier, more focused. Julia walked over with a clipboard in her hand and a bright smile on her face. Good morning. Ready for your big challenge? Lena nodded. Yes, I've been thinking about it since yesterday. Rachel's excited to see what you came up with, Julia said. She mentioned you might bring a fresh perspective. Lena took her seat and pulled out her sketch pad. She had worked late into the night at home, creating ideas for the charity campaign Rachel had mentioned. The charity was called Bright Future, and it helped underprivileged children get access to education, art, and creative learning. Lena felt deeply connected to the cause because she had lived a similar story herself. Her concept for the campaign was simple but powerful, a pencil turning into a ladder, symbolizing how learning can lift a child toward their dreams. She drew children climbing the ladder with smiles on their faces reaching for stars. Around the image, she added bright colors, warm yellow, soft orange, and hopeful blue. Rachel walked over around 10 a.m. Lena, are you ready to share your ideas? Yes, Lena said, standing up and holding her drawings. They walked together into a meeting room where a few other designers were seated, along with a representative from the charity, Mrs. Green, a kind-looking woman with silver hair and soft eyes. Rachel introduced Lena. This is our newest apprentice. She's taken on the challenge of creating a fresh concept for your campaign. We wanted to give her the floor today. Lena smiled nervously and stepped forward. She placed her sketches on the table and began to speak. I wanted to show how education isn't just about books or tests. It's about giving children the tools to climb higher, to believe in themselves. So I drew a pencil that becomes a ladder. Each rung stands for creativity, knowledge, and courage. And I added stars because that's what dreams feel like. Something far away but beautiful. Mrs. Green leaned in to look at the drawing. She didn't say anything at first. Then slowly her eyes began to water. This speaks to everything we stand for, she said softly. It's gentle, hopeful, and full of heart. Rachel nodded in agreement. It's impressive, very thoughtful. One of the senior designers in the room added. I like how Lena didn't use any traditional symbols like books or chalkboards. It feels new. Mrs. Green reached out and touched Lena's hand lightly. Have you ever received help from a charity like ours? Lena hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Yes. When I was younger, there was a program in my neighborhood that helped me learn how to draw. I didn't have art supplies at home, but they gave me a box of pencils and a sketchbook. It changed my life. There was a long pause in the room. Everyone seemed moved by her words. Rachel finally said, I think we found the direction for the campaign. The rest of the day went by quickly. Lena helped convert her sketches into digital mock-ups, guided by one of the senior artists. She learned how to use design software she had never touched before. Every time she felt unsure, someone was there to guide her. By the end of the afternoon, the whole campaign concept had taken shape. Posters, social media designs, and even a small animation idea. Lena had helped shape all of it. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. She had never worked on something that felt so important. As she packed up her things to leave for the day, Mr. Clark walked into the design floor. Everyone stood a little straighter when they saw him. I heard we have a star in the making, he said with a smile, walking over to Lena. Rachel stood next to him. Lena's concept is going to be the foundation of the Bright Future campaign. Mr. Clark looked at Lena with interest. That's incredible. I knew you had something special the moment I saw your sketches, but this... He paused, then added, this is the kind of work that makes a company proud. Lena felt her cheeks warm with pride. Thank you, sir. I'm going to speak with HR, Mr. Clark said. I want to see if we can adjust your apprenticeship timeline. If you keep this up, you'll be on the design team full-time in no time. As he walked away, the room buzzed with quiet excitement. A few team members clapped softly. Lena stood in the middle, overwhelmed, but in a good way. Later, as she waited at the bus stop, Lena pulled out her sketchbook. She flipped to the last page and wrote a short note to herself. Believe in your own voice, even if no one hears it yet. She thought about everything that had happened in the last few days. She had gone from being ignored in a lobby to leading a campaign meeting, and not once had she changed who she was. She had simply shown the world her heart through her art. At home, her younger brother ran up to greet her. How was it today? He asked. Lena smiled and hugged him tightly. It was the best day yet. She didn't know exactly what the future would bring, but she knew one thing for sure. She was on the right path. And for the first time, people were walking with her, instead of passing her by. The morning sun shone brightly through the window of Lena's small room. She sat at her desk, brushing the last touches of color onto a poster she had designed the night before. It wasn't just any design. It was the final version of the Bright Future charity campaign artwork. She had spent hours adjusting the details, trying to make each part meaningful, soft, and full of hope. It was the biggest project of her life so far, and today was the day it would be revealed to the entire company. Her hands trembled a little as she packed her sketch pad, the poster, and her tablet into her bag. But her heart felt full. For the first time ever, she didn't feel unsure of herself. She felt ready. When she walked into the company building, something was different. The receptionist, Amanda, looked up from her desk as usual, but this time, she stood up. Morning, Amanda, said, her voice gentler than before. Good luck with your presentation. Lena paused for a second, a little surprised. She gave a small smile. Thank you. Amanda nodded and sat back down, her face looking slightly embarrassed but sincere. It was a simple moment, but to Lena, it meant everything. It showed that people really could change their minds once they saw who someone truly was. Upstairs, the entire design team was preparing for the presentation. Everyone looked excited, and the office was filled with a buzz of energy. Even the marketing team had gathered around to see the final reveal. Lena's poster had already caused a stir during early previews, and people were now eager to see the complete version. Rachel greeted Lena with a warm smile. You ready, Star? Lena nodded, even though her stomach felt like butterflies were dancing inside. I hope so. You'll do great, Rachel said. You've earned this moment. As Lena walked into the main conference room, she saw Mr. Clark already seated at the head of the long table. Several department heads were present, and Mrs. Green from the charity had returned, looking even more cheerful than before. Everyone turned to look at Lena as she set up her presentation on the big screen. Lena took a deep breath and started speaking. I wanted to create something that didn't just show education, but showed what it means for a child to dream. A pencil turning into a ladder with children climbing toward the stars. That's the image I created. Because that's what a bright future looks like. It's a journey upward, one step at a time. And every child deserves to take that journey, as she showed her designs. The room stayed quiet, but not in a bad way. It was the kind of silence that meant people were really listening. Her designs were clean, colorful, and filled with meaning. One poster showed a child holding a pencil with stars above. Another design had a short slogan, "Give a child the tools and they'll build the future." When she finished, there was a short pause. Then, one by one, people began to clap. First, softly, then louder. "This," said Mr. Clark, "is not just good design. This is real storytelling. It connects people. It tells the truth." Mrs. Green wiped a tear from her eye. "I've worked with many designers over the years, but none have captured our message so beautifully." Rachel leaned over to whisper to Lena, "You've done it. Really." Mr. Clark stood up and addressed the room. "I think it's clear that Lena's work is not just a good beginning. It's strong enough to lead a full campaign. I'd like to offer her a full-time junior designer position starting next month." Lena's eyes widened. She hadn't expected that, at least not this soon. For a second, she couldn't speak. "Would you accept the offer?" Mr. Clark asked kindly. Lena nodded slowly, then with more confidence. "Yes. Thank you. I would be honored." The room clapped again, and Rachel gave her a proud thumbs up. After the meeting ended, several people came up to Lena, congratulating her, asking about her process, and sharing how inspired they were. She answered each question politely, still trying to believe that all of this was really happening. As the room emptied, Amanda entered shyly from the back. She had heard the applause from the front desk and came in to see what was going on. When she realized it was for Lena, she walked up to her. "Hey," Amanda said, "I just wanted to say, I was wrong about you. I judged you too quickly and that wasn't fair." Lena looked at her and smiled softly. "It's okay. Thank you for saying that. You've got real talent," Amanda added. "I'm glad." "Someone saw it." Lena nodded. "Me too." Later that evening, as she walked home, Lena felt like the city around her had changed. But in truth, it was Lena herself who had changed. She had come into this company just hoping for a chance, and now she had a desk, a team, and a future. When she got home, her younger brother was waiting at the window like he always did. "So," he shouted as she walked up the steps. "Did they like it?" Lena opened the door and hugged him tightly. "They more than liked it. I got the job." Her mother, standing in the kitchen, dropped her spoon and rushed over to join the hug. "Oh, Lena, I knew you could do it." They celebrated with a simple meal, rice, vegetables, and tea, but it felt like a feast. Everyone laughed, told stories, and took turns holding Lena's sketchpad like it was a trophy. Before going to bed, Lena sat by the window with her sketchpad on her lap. She flipped to a blank page and started drawing something new. Not a poster, not a logo, just something from her heart. A girl standing at a tall door once closed, now wide open with light shining through. Behind her, people once unsure were now cheering her on. She wrote one word at the bottom of the drawing: believe. Because that was what had changed everything. Not magic, not luck, but belief. Belief in herself, in her work, and in the quiet voice inside that never stopped dreaming. And now her voice was being heard.